Hey everybody, I'm Raya.
And I'm Brandon.
And you're watching More Love with
R&B.
And today we're talking about, what are we talking about, babe?
We're talking about communication, the talker versus the thinker.
Guess who's the talker?
You.
I told you to guess.
Oh. You probably knew that though.
Yeah. In this relationship, I am definitely the talker.
And I am definitely the thinker. The processor, I like to call it.
Yeah. And this can cause a lot of...
Watch yourself.
This can cause a lot of communication.
Static.
Yeah, within a relationship. And we just want to kind of talk about how we deal with it, how it affects us, and how we deal with it, I'll say.
Right. So I'll start.
Okay.
So being the thinker, I've come to find out that just in our experience, we've met a lot of couples where sometimes the husband is the thinker, sometimes the wife is the thinker. And basically all that means, at least in our opinion, is it means that in times of, I won't say in times of trouble, in times of strenuous communication, where I would say two people maybe disagree or don't see eye to eye on something specifically, the thinker is someone who is listening, and it takes them a while to process what they're hearing and then processing an appropriate response. Because it's like, I want to say something, but I want to make sure that I say everything that I want to say, and I want to make sure that I don't say anything that I don't want to say. And all that stuff is happening in my head, and so it causes me to not say anything for a long time. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And on the flip side of that, the talker is a person who's more of a gut person. They hear something, they know how it makes them feel, and with minimal to no processing whatsoever, they just say what they're feeling. It's their truth, but it's sometimes unprocessed, and it's just a gut reaction. They're able to hear something and to regurgitate how they feel about it right away. Right. And so that can cause static when one person wants to think about something and the other person's more gut and they're pouring out their heart, and the other person doesn't respond.
Yeah, and I definitely spark off the idea, just like the downsides of both. You can talk about the talker, but kind of piggybacking off what she said, I can definitely see how, when somebody's pouring out their heart and they're giving their all and they're being very passionate about something they believe in, and typically, we rarely ever have disagreements or anything about, what food we're going to eat for the day, or which episode of The Office was the best one, before Michael Scott left, after Michael Scott left. Like, we rarely ever argue about stuff like that. Obviously, it's always something that has to do with the relationship. And so I can definitely attest that I'm pretty sure it's very stressful for her to be the husband in the marriage and be the thinker, the one who you're looking for some kind of leadership and guidance. And what are we gonna do, husband? And I'm just like, And some of that facial expressions and it just means I don't really know what I want to say yet. And some of it's a defense mechanism. Some of it is I don't want to say the wrong thing just because you want me to say something. Because then once I put it out there, you're going to hold me to it. And I might just be throwing it out there because you want to hear something. And so I like to be overly careful about what I say in times of, disagreements and fights.
Absolutely. And for me, I feel like it's important for me to say how I feel, and it's also important for me to hear how he feels. In the moment, I want to be able to say something, and then I want to get a response right away. How did you feel when I said that? And then he's like, oh, so you don't know how you feel about it. Like, and so it can kind of make for some tension. It can kind of make for some frustration.
Right.
I feel like we haven't mastered this yet, but we have kind of some tips that we feel like might be able to help you if you're dealing with any of the things that we're dealing with. We have two people who communicate very differently.
Oh, yeah.
I'll start. I feel like it is important, if you are the talker, to be patient. Be patient and let the person who's a thinker process. And I'll say, because if you back somebody in a corner, they're just going to say anything that they might not necessarily mean, and then it's hard to get back when it's been said. So if you want an honest response, take a breath, know that person needs to think, so that when they give you their response, it's the truth and it's clear.
So encouragements for all the thinkers out there. Typically, if you are a thinker and you are married to a talker, then you know that person, whether you're the husband or the wife or whatever, like you know that person needs something. There's no way that anybody can talk, and then they say, now you go, and you just go, I don't have anything to say. Like, first of all, that's baloney, because even as a thinker, you process as you go. Do you have a problem with the word baloney? What's going on? No. What was that?
I was like, yes, sir.
So as the thinker, we all know that like you process as you go. So you don't have nothing, you have something, you just don't have, you probably, in all fairness, don't have the whole picture of what you want to say. So my encouragement would be, if you're a talker, then maybe try spurts instead of long soliloquies of dialogue so that someone can interject. If that happens, I think the thinker has more time to give short responses and even be honest and say, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that right now. Here's some of my response, but I'm still processing and I'm still thinking about it. It's all about communication. One of the biggest issues that we have, like when we're not arguing or whatever, my wife will say, hey, what are you thinking about? And what do I say?
Nothing, or I don't know.
Nothing. And I think a lot of people do that. You know, hey, what are you thinking about? Nothing. And it's not true, because the reality is I've probably got 100 things spinning around in my head, but it's not communication if my wife asks me, what am I thinking? And I say nothing. So in that same vein, it's good to be honest. You know, if someone asks you what you're thinking, you say, well, I'm thinking about this, and this, and we can probably talk about a couple of those things. Also, when it comes to fighting or arguing or just having disagreements, and you have a talker, as a thinker, try to give more throughout the conversation. Don't always look to wait until the end of the conversation and be like, okay, now I got what I want to say. Nobody wants to wait around for that. So it's only fair that you give a little something throughout the conversation.
I agree. And I think that my next point is going to be for both the thinker and the talker. Make sure that whatever you say is the truth, or that you're being honest. A lot of times talkers just fly off at the mouth and they're not necessarily wise with what they're saying, and so it could be an over-exaggeration, or it may not even be the truth. It may be kind of how they're feeling, but maybe just way too over-exaggerated, or maybe the thinker is overthinking something just way too much, or is backed into a corner where they feel like they have to say something. If you don't know what to say, it's best to say, I don't know what to say right now, instead of saying nothing, or instead of just saying anything. It's best that whatever you say, make sure that it's the truth, and make sure it's like truly how you feel, or truly the correct answer, I guess, to the question. Because when you're in a relationship, whether you are dating, engaged, or married, it's important that your communication is productive.
Yeah.
And you can have a productive conversation with someone if you're not talking or if you're saying things that's not true. So make sure whatever you say is the truth.
I'll say my last thing for thinkers is when you have identified that you are the thinker and your spouse is a talker, I would say be respectful and have a little grace in your heart for your spouse who is the talker. Because here's the reality. Typically people who are talkers are very passionate at the drop of a hat. Like, you start going in about something, they feel very passionately about whatever the topic is. All right?
It's so true.
And so rather than, like, do not disregard their feelings, don't disregard their emotional attachment to whatever the thing is. There's sometimes my wife will be passionate about something that I'm like, forget the passion, just what you're passionate about in that moment isn't even important, but I'm disregarding her feelings in the midst of that. You know, it shouldn't matter if it's important to me. When it's important to your spouse, it should become important to you.
Absolutely.
So have grace with them, have a little patience, engage, listen actively. If you're going to be a thinker, be a thinker. But when someone's talking, even if you don't agree, even if you don't agree to the height at which the emotion is going, be active listeners with your spouses.
Absolutely. And that brings me to, I guess, my last point is remember that you guys are on the same team. The whole point of a discussion or even an argument is to understand the other person's point of view and to try to come to a resolution. You're on the same team.
Same team.
And so we're not fighting to win.
Nope, not fighting to win. I got you.
We're not fighting to just win the fight.
Right.
We are fighting together to come to an understanding about something we feel very important about. So I think if you keep that at the focus, that you're my teammate and we're working together, that it can bring some of the tension down and it could cause for better communication.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yes, be sure to like the video, give it a good thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and share it so other people can subscribe.
Absolutely.
And please leave your comments in the comment section. We would love to get back to you guys and just chop it up and have some good dialogue. Let us know who's the talkers and who's the thinkers in your relationship.
Absolutely.
And I would even say, even if you're single, which one are you now? And maybe one day in the future you'll tell us who you find. If they're just like you or the opposite. But opposites attract. So.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye guys.